The following program is paid for by Main Street Living.
Hi, I'm Pastor Matthew Harrison, president of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Starting in the late 1950s, Lutheran Hour Ministries aired a television program called This is the Life in their efforts to bring Christ to the nations. It was a critically acclaimed show that used story and drama to convey eternal truths from God's Word. And it featured actors who were just getting started in their careers. Recently, Lutheran Hour Ministries, in partnership with Main Street Living, remastered and brought to HD quality about 50 of these programs. And even though the props and styles are of the 1960s and 70s, the subject matter is still very relevant. So please sit back and enjoy this week's episode of This is the Life.
I'm so excited about the news, Mr. Brandt.
Yeah, I'm glad those tax charges against Schwartz have been dropped. But we had an airtight defense anyway.
Mr. Brandt, you know that wasn't what I was talking about. Carl Brandt, prominent local attorney, who came to this country as an immigrant 35 years ago, is being considered for appointment to the Superior Court vacancy, according to sources close to the governor's office.
It's a good feeling, Jeannie. Even to be considered. When we came from Hamburg, I couldn't even speak enough English to get a janitor's job in a court building.
And now you're going to be a judge.
No, not so fast. After all, it's only a newspaper report.
I'm sure it's true.
If it is, will you come along as my secretary, or would you rather stay here in case my son takes over the office?
Well, don't you think I'd better keep my job with you? A bird in the hand, you know. There's a gentleman outside to see you.
I don't have any other appointments today.
It's a Mr. Roger Hensley from the FBI.
Oh, well, I guess I better see him then.
Yes, sir. Come in, Mr. Hensley.
Thank you. Brandt,
What can I do for you, Mr. Hensley?
it's about your son, Paul.
What about Paul?
Well, I'm afraid he's heading for serious trouble, Mr. Brandt.
Trouble?
We've learned that he's becoming involved with the communist movement on the campus.
Paul? He talks wild sometimes, but that's just part of growing up.
Well, I'm afraid he's doing more than talking, sir. He's associating with known communists, even attends their meetings. The front meetings, that is. We know that they're getting ready to recruit him any day now.
You're sure about this?
We're sure.
Why'd you come here, Mr. Hensley? Is there some charge against Paul?
No. No, there are no charges. But we are concerned, Mr. Brandt, particularly because of you.
Because of me?
The commies would love to snare the son of a Superior Court judge.
I will withdraw my name at once. But what about Paul? Can we do something?
Well, that's entirely up to you, sir. We can't get into it unless the law is broken. But believe me, Mr. Brandt, we do want to help.
Thank you, Mr. Hensley.
Bye, sir.
Hello? Is Paul Brandt around? Mhm. Will you please ask him to call his father, either at the office or at home? Thank you.
Hi, Dad. What's up?
What time are you through with classes today?
Oh, about 3. Why?
Will you please come up to my office as soon as you're through?
I can't this afternoon, Dad. I've got other plans.
You will have to change your plans. I've got to talk to you.
All right. I'll be there. Yeah. Goodbye. Hi, Jean.
Well, hello.
You look better than ever.
You have a good memory.
No, it hasn't been that long.
Hasn't it? Go right in. Your dad's expecting you.
Hi, Dad. What's on your mind?
Paul, I've heard some rather disturbing reports about you.
Such as?
Such as the fact that you're spending so much time with people who are nothing but communists.
Well, nothing but communists. Well, maybe there's nothing but communism for people who aren't afraid to think. Look, Dad, if you want to find out how I stand on anything, just ask me. Don't waste your time by listening to a lot of stool pigeons.
You don't know what you're saying, Paul. You don't know what communism really means.
No, but I'm learning. And what I'm learning makes more sense to me now than anything I've ever learned before. Your world is dying, Dad, and it's burying itself in the dry rot of imperialism and colonialism. Communism is building a new world right in front of your eyes, and you can't see it.
I saw communism at work before you were born, Paul. I remember the horrible, senseless violence, the bitterness. I saw the terror in Kiel and Berlin.
You remember a man named Hitler? That's where your violence came from. But people like you couldn't see that either until it was too late.
Paul, let's not quarrel about history. Think about America, our country. It's been good to us. Where else could all this happen?
I remember when you made that speech at a 4th of July picnic. I was about 12. And it sounded great. Then. But somehow you flag wavers never get around to mentioning wars and depression, big business government, bigotry, Middle Eastern oil, the China lobby. What's the matter? Don't you read between the headlines?
No matter what you say, Paul, and no matter how big our problems are, there's still the most important thing of all. We have freedom here. Freedom to make what we can of our own lives.
Freedom to conform. Freedom to make the proper responses when somebody pushes the propaganda buttons.
How about your own future? You can't make a living with wild talk like this. In June, you graduate from law school. Aren't you coming into my office then?
It wouldn't work, Dad. I want to practice law, but I want to defend those people that really need my help. Not a lot of tax dodgers. I'll make out all right. You'd be surprised how many people feel the same as I do about this. We're just not buying the red baiting line anymore.
It's what happens to the people in Russia and China. Rat baiting.
Oh, get with it, Dad. Who do you think worked out the mathematics for the Sputnik? A bunch of discontented peasants? I really stumped poor Dad with that line about mathematics for Sputnik. He couldn't think of a thing to say.
I'm so proud of you, Paul.
Well, thanks, Sandra. I just tried to think of some of the things I learned from you. Sandra, I really do appreciate all this trouble you've taken.
What makes you think it's been trouble?
Without meaning to be presumptuous, I feel obligated to write you concerning the press reports that you're considering my name, along with others, for appointment to the Superior Court vacancy. If this is the case, I am very grateful. But unfortunately, certain circumstances beyond my control would make it impossible for me to accept such an appointment.
I thought it best to notify you of this situation and sincerely hope that you will not misunderstand the intent of this letter.
Is something wrong, Mr. Brand? Is there anything I can do?
No, thanks, Jeannie. Just end this letter with the usual best wishes, etc.
Yes, sir.
Jeannie,
Yes, sir.
maybe you can help. I don't want to sound personal, but when you left school and came to work here, you and Paul used to get out together quite a bit.
Well, that's right, but I don't exactly know what happened. Paul just stopped calling me.
I know what happened. He got involved with a communist group at school.
Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry, Mr. Brandt.
I don't want to involve you in this, but it doesn't do any good for me to talk to Paul. I always seem to say the wrong things, and he twists my words back at me.
I'd like to help, but I don't know what I can do. He certainly wouldn't listen to me.
Do you know anybody at the university who could talk to him?
Well, we used to listen to Pastor Bob Myers. He's a student pastor at the university. Paul seemed to like him a lot, but well, now I don't know.
It's worth a chance. I'll see him this afternoon. Thank you, Ginny.
All right, Mr. Brandt.
Oh, I can't say that I recall your son, but with 12,000 students on the campus, I only work with those who come to see me, or those whose need is brought to my attention.
I guess it is my fault. After his mother died, Paul never had much time for church.
What's happened to Paul has happened to quite a few other young people. This is a book on communism written by J. Edgar Hoover. It's called Masters of Deceit. One chapter tells about a boy, a fine mind, intensely interested in the world about him and in science, but who had gradually lost his belief in God. Well, this boy came into contact with communist thinking in college, and in Mr. Hoover's words, believed he had found a new faith. Well, from what you say, your son also seems to feel that he has found a new faith.
I never thought of it this way. I guess you're right. Anything you can do to help him?
I don't know, Mr. Brandt, but I do know some of the fellows at his fraternity house. Maybe I could drop by and find a chance to meet him.
Pastor, I'll be so grateful for anything you can do.
I'll try and meet your son as soon as possible. And my guess is that his communist friends are going to move pretty fast now that he's talked to you. Yeah, that was an interesting meeting. And I was invited. I don't suppose you've ever read this sheet. Oh, I have. Many others like it. Many times. You mean you've actually read this paper? It's pretty heavy-handed stuff, isn't it? Personally, I never found much challenge in the Medak school of writing. Oh, here's another story about the communist author. One who took the party bosses seriously when they said criticism would now be welcome. Just listen to this. He's a pig who fouls his own sty and should be driven out like any other pig of his kind.
Well, that's just a figure of speech.
Right. It's pretty crude, too, isn't it? You ever stop to think that communism is the most outdated major philosophy in the world today?
Or maybe that's just the other way around.
That's what they try to tell us, isn't it? They point to Sputnik, as though that proves something more than material, short-view progress. They use the externals of science to send a massive metal out into space, and then they forget the fundamental meaning of modern scientific thought.
Science is helping to destroy the old order.
You're certainly right about that. Our greatest scientific minds tell us that we've now reached a stage where matter and energy and the spiritual content of life seem to overlap. Yet, communist thought, rooted in the mind of a 19th century fanatic, still ignores the immeasurable value and dignity of the individual human soul. Isn't that what you'd call a cultural lag?
I wouldn't put it exactly that way.
No, sure you could put it much better. It's been nice talking to you. Look, why don't you drop around and we'll kick around a few more long-hair ideas.
I've discussed our young friend with the section.
Do they think we should recruit him?
Not so fast. We've got to take him in all right. But the section thinks he ought to commit himself first.
Well, how can we do that?
That's your job, baby.
Well, how?
It's about time Paul proved himself by doing something for the party, huh? Have him deliver this to our man in Chicago.
But do you think we can trust him to deliver something like this?
Why not? He's hopped up enough to do anything. And who'd bother to trail him?
What'll I tell him?
Now, you tell him anything you want to. I'm sure he'll believe it.
Paul, I'm so glad I reached you.
Hi, Sandra, what's up?
It was something just wonderful.
Well, sit down and fire away.
I finally convinced the leaders of the club that you should be one of us.
Even Ron?
Oh, well, it was Ron who insisted you could be trusted.
Well, what do you know?
Here, now, you put this in your pocket.
What am I supposed to do with it?
We hope that you'll deliver it to friends in Chicago.
What's in it?
Oh, just confidential records, dues, and things like that. We don't like to send them through the mail because, well, so many of our people are being watched these days.
Was it all right if I deliver this tomorrow afternoon? I have tests all tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow afternoon would be just fine. Oh, Paul, isn't it wonderful to be working together in something we both believe in?
Yeah.
You sure he was convinced?
Oh, he was convinced quite thoroughly.
Well, he's late reporting back.
Well, this time of day, you know, traffic in and out of Chicago is very heavy.
Any problems?
None.
Anybody see you give it to him?
Not a soul.
Fine work. Now, it's up to you, of course. But whenever you're ready, we're ready. I'm going to recommend you without reservation for membership.
Great. Well, how about celebrating with dinner on me?
Sure.
Wonderful.
Waiter.
I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Brand.
That's all right, Jeannie. I wasn't accomplishing much anyway.
I was wondering, have you heard from Pastor Bob?
Yes, he spoke with Paul at the frat house the other night, but he said it was just breaking the ice.
Are you going to be in court all afternoon?
I don't know why.
Well, I hope you won't mind, but I called Paul this morning. He doesn't like the idea much, but he's coming over this afternoon. I told him that there was something I had to talk with him about and that you'd be away in court.
It was a fine thing for you to do, Jeannie. A very fine and difficult thing. But what are you going to say?
Just let me try, Mr. Brand.
You're a wonderful girl, Jeannie. I only hope Paul will realize it before it is too late.
You just had to see me. Okay, doll, take a nice, long look.
I don't know how your father would feel about my showing you this, but I thought you should know about it.
Governor. Dad shouldn't have written this. He's worked for years for that appointment.
He felt he had no other choice since the FBI came to see him about you.
The FBI? Oh, I'm sorry this scene's taken.
I'm sorry, Paul.
I don't have to talk to you. I know my rights.
Of course you don't. But I thought you might want to after you see this.
I don't know what this is all about.
Your statement may be more correct than you think. Go ahead. Open the envelope.
This means nothing to me.
The university's physics lab has for several years had a missile research contract from Army Ordnance. Lately, papers have been disappearing. Fortunately, nothing important. The information in these particular papers is so elementary, it's meaningless.
So why are you bothering me with this stuff? I'm waiting for someone.
If you mean Sandra Thompson, I think she'll be answering a few questions herself tonight. The important thing, Paul, is that these papers were delivered to a Soviet agent in Chicago 2 days ago.
Soviet agent.
And we have reason to believe that a young man of your age and appearance delivered them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You can really help us if you want to cooperate. We're interested in learning how these papers get in the wrong hands. Next time, it might be something important.
Don't ask me to do any of your stool pigeon work for you.
You think about those words tonight. Would you really use them in describing your service to your country? To your integrity as an American citizen? We're just as interested in helping the innocent and the misguided as finding the guilty. You remember that.
And then I didn't know where to go or who to talk to, so I decided to come here.
I'm glad you did, Paul.
The one thing I can't understand, I thought that Sandra and I really meant a lot to each other. I can't understand why she'd lie to me and get me in this kind of a mess.
Well, unfortunately, the hardcore communists sacrifice anything to achieve an end, even personal feelings. They forget one thing, and that will inevitably defeat them.
Inevitably?
That's right. You see, Christianity and science teach us that means and the end are part of a continuum. The means determine the end. The communists, talk a lot about brotherhood as an end result, but they'd have us believe that this can be achieved by means that destroy the essential meaning of brotherhood.
Sometimes you have to suppress freedom temporarily in order to gain a greater freedom in the long run.
Well, it's the same paradox, isn't it? If it suppresses freedom and shows contempt for the moral and spiritual needs of man, on what foundation does communism hope ultimately to build freedom? When you come right down to it, Paul, the fundamental difference between Christianity and communism is the essential importance of every human being in God's eyes.
Well, you make it sound as though communism were a religion.
To a communist, it's just that. Of course, it's the very antithesis of our own Christian religion.
In what way?
Well, you'd have to call communism an atheistic religion in that it denies the existence of God, and therefore also of man's responsibility to a higher power. Now, to a communist, man is not a creature of God, created in God's image. He's merely a rational animal fighting for mastery of the jungle.
Well, that's what they say of capitalism. I mean about being a jungle.
They never talk about capitalism in terms of 20th century democracy, do they? No, they're just still using the old cliches of Karl Marx. Well, by its own admission, communism is materialistic. Nothing matters but matter. To a communist, there's no communion between man and his spiritual source, no life hereafter, no immortality. Only this world counts. A world that man can see and touch, subjugate and master. Now, to a Christian, man is a very special creature of God. Well, true, he is fallen, but he is also redeemed by Jesus, who died for us on the cross.
Well, you're not denying that there's a material side to our lives.
Of course not. But as a child of God, the Christian lives in daily contact with the Father in a relationship of love. Now, he works to make this relationship meaningful in terms of the material world in which he lives. But his highest values are not material. They are the spiritual values of humility and mercy, love and truth, honor and integrity. Fundamentally, Paul, the Christian's horizons extend beyond this world. He knows that he's been redeemed by Christ for eternity, for a life with God through the endless ages. You've had quite a lot for one day, haven't you? Why not sleep on it? Tomorrow we'll kick it around again.
Oh, now, well, what do I do about this FBI mess I'm in?
Oh, well, that's a little out of my line, but if I were you, I wouldn't be afraid to go and talk to them. You might talk to a good lawyer, too, if you happen to know one.
I've known a good lawyer all my life.
Good day, Miss Dawson.
Bye. Yes, sir? Yes, sir.
You didn't have to bring your notebook, Jeannie. But on second thought, maybe it is good you did. Perhaps Paul would like to dictate a letter. I'll be right back.
Would you take the letter, please? Dear Jeannie, I'm just beginning to realize how much you've done for me. And Dad, he says that this morning is the happiest of his life. Well, I can't say that yet, but I can say it's the most important. Just as last night with Pastor Bob was the most meaningful. And if Dad'll let you off 20 minutes early, I sure would like to take you to lunch and try to tell you how much I appreciate what you've done.
It's a date.
Thanks, Jeannie.
I hope you found this program to be both entertaining and insightful. Even though the show was filmed decades ago, the concerns of those days seem to parallel many situations of today. We'll be back next week with another episode of This is the Life. In the meantime, I invite you to seek further wisdom from God's Word, the Bible, and I invite you to visit one of our congregations in your area. We are the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and you will find our 6,000 congregations listed at www.lcms.org. This program has been brought to you by Main Street Living, which relies on the generosity of viewers to support this programming. They appreciate your prayers and would also appreciate your financial support. You can view additional episodes of This is the Life on the Main Street Living website. Thanks for watching, and join us again next week, same time, same channel, for another episode of This is the Life.
Send your comments and contributions to Main Street Living, 1400 South Duluth Avenue, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 57105. This has been a production of Main Street Living Incorporated in conjunction with the South Dakota District of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod and its member churches.